Something big is happening in Africa right now, but chances are you haven't heard about it. Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traore, is turning heads across the continent. Since stepping into power, he's become a symbol of hope, earning admiration from Africans both at home and abroad for his bold, patriotic approach. People see him as more than just a leader of Burkina Faso. They see him as a beacon for Africa's future. His ideas and leadership style have sparked so much inspiration that some Africans have even launched a petition to make him the president of all of Africa. Yes, you read that right. This movement first gained traction back in October last year, when the initial petition surfaced. It wasn't just about Burkina Faso, it was about a bigger dream, a united, self-reliant Africa, free from foreign control. The petition stated, "We, the undersigned, represent Africans around the world who believe in a decolonized, united, and self-sufficient Africa. At this critical moment, we find hope in the leadership of President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. His courage and dedication have reignited belief in a brighter future, not just for Burkina Faso, but for the entire continent and Africans everywhere. Africa's story has long been shadowed by colonization, exploitation, and imperialism. These forces didn't just strip the land of its resources, they broke apart its unity, shook its cultural foundations, and left lasting scars on its political and economic systems. Even after countries gained independence, the grip of neo-colonial powers never fully let go. Today, global economic pressures and foreign influence still shape decisions in many African nations, impacting not only those on the continent, but Africans living abroad too. Right now, something powerful is happening in Burkina Faso, and it's catching the world's attention. At the heart of it all is President Ibrahim Traore, a leader who isn't afraid to stand up and fight for his country's freedom and Africa's future. Traore is pushing back against the leftover influence of imperialism, working hard to make sure Burkina Faso has full control over its own destiny. But he's not stopping there. He's calling for unity across Africa, encouraging countries to come together and break free from outside control. His mission echoes the dreams of legendary African leaders like Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, and Patrice Lumumba, leaders who dedicated their lives to the idea of a strong, united Africa that answers to no one but itself. For many Africans and members of the diaspora, Traore's fight feels personal. It's not just about Burkina Faso, it's about the ongoing battle for freedom, dignity, and self-determination that so many African nations are still fighting today. Traore's bold leadership has sparked hope, inspiring millions who want to see Africa stand tall on its own terms. He's become a symbol of strength, not just for his people, but for Africans and people of African descent all over the world. That's why countless voices have come together, signing a petition to show their full support for President Traore. They're backing his vision of an Africa that's economically independent, politically strong, and united in its purpose. This isn't just about one country or one leader, it's a call to action. Africans, people of African descent, and allies around the globe are being urged to join the fight against neo-colonialism and imperialism, stand with Traore, and help build a stronger, more united global African community. Before we continue, we would love to ask you a question. Is Ibrahim Traore someone you would love to be the president of your country? Let us know what you think in the comment section. Now let us move on. Something unexpected is happening across Africa, and it's stirring up big conversations. What started as a simple petition supporting President Ibrahim Traore and his leadership in Burkina Faso has now grown into something much bigger. People are calling for him to become the president of all of Africa. Yes, you heard that right. The petition argues that Africa's current divided leadership has left the continent uneven in development, riddled with inequality, and stuck in outdated colonial borders. Its vision? Tear down those borders and create a stronger, more united Africa under one collective leadership. And at the centre of this dream stands Traore. Supporters believe that with his leadership, Africa could finally see equal development across all nations, a single currency for trade and travel, and even one unified flag waving proudly over the entire continent. Africa needs to come together, stronger, bolder, and more united than ever. The petition reads, "This isn't a brand new idea. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, and Muammar Gaddafi once championed the concept of a United States of Africa. Gaddafi, in fact, went as far as planning a single African currency backed by Libya's massive gold reserves, 143 tons of it, to be exact. But before he could bring that dream to life, he was overthrown and killed, a move heavily backed by foreign powers and internal betrayals. Since then, talk of a unified Africa has mostly gathered dust, with the African Union often criticised for lacking the power to make real changes. But now, ordinary Africans are breathing new life into the idea, rallying behind Traore and pushing for a continent that finally stands as one. Social media has played a massive role in this resurgence. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook have been flooded with hashtags like Kerin Traore for Africa and African Unity, drawing in millions of supporters and amplifying the conversation far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. But, as expected, not everyone is on board. Reactions have been all over the place. Some political experts and everyday Africans see this as a bold, long overdue step toward breaking the cycle of poverty, corruption, and foreign exploitation that has plagued the continent for decades. Others, however, call it a pipe dream, pointing out that if the African Union can't make unity work, how could one leader possibly unite over 50 countries with different cultures, languages, and interests? The silence from most African governments speaks volumes. Many leaders have completely ignored the petition, likely viewing it as a direct threat to their power. After all, if Africa united under one flag, many of them would lose the control, an influence they've spent years building. It's a pattern Africa has seen before. During Gaddafi's push for African unity, it was African leaders themselves who invited foreign powers to intervene, leading to his downfall. The same forces that fear change today feared it then. So, can President Traore really become the leader of a united Africa? Is the dream of one Africa, one flag, one government, one currency actually possible? One major roadblock to the idea of a united Africa under one leader is the continent's sheer diversity. Africa isn't just one big country. It's made up of 54 independent nations, each with its own government, political system, languages, and unique interests. Trying to bring them all together under a single presidency would be like trying to fit puzzle pieces from completely different sets into one picture. But it goes even deeper than that. Within these 54 countries are thousands of tribes, each with their own culture, traditions, and way of life. In fact, many of the borders we see today were drawn during colonial times without any consideration for these tribal differences. This has been the root cause of many civil wars and conflicts across the continent. Take Nigeria, for example. It's home to over 750 tribes, but since gaining independence, only 2 of those tribes have consistently held the country's highest positions of power. This deep imbalance fueled the Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970, when the Igbo people in southeastern Nigeria attempted to break away and form their own nation, the Republic of Biafra. Or look at Mali. The current instability there, which has spread across the Sahel region and fallen into the hands of extremist groups, actually started when members of the Tuareg tribe pushed for their own independent state. That initial conflict spiraled into a full-blown crisis that still affects the region today. And it doesn't stop there. Rwanda's tragic genocide and the ongoing chaos in the Democratic Republic of Congo both have roots in tribal tensions that colonial borders only made worse. So here's the big question. If African countries have struggled for over 60 years to bring unity within their own borders, how realistic is it to expect all 54 nations to unite under one leader? But wait, wasn't the African Union supposed to handle this kind of thing? The African Union, AU, originally known as the Organisation of African Unity, OAU, was created in 1963 with a bold vision to free Africa from foreign interference and help its nations work together for peace and prosperity. In 2002, under Muammar Gaddafi's influence, it rebranded as the African Union, hoping to give the dream of a united Africa a fresh start. The goal was simple: create a strong, unified voice for Africa on the global stage and make sure the continent's future was shaped by Africans themselves. But after more than 6 decades, many Africans feel let down. Peace and stability? Still a dream. Countries like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Sudan, the DRC, and the Central African Republic are all caught in cycles of conflict and insecurity. Economic growth? That's another sore spot. Instead of thriving, many African economies are either stagnant or in decline. Millions of young Africans are risking dangerous journeys across deserts and seas just to escape poverty and chase better opportunities in Europe. Meanwhile, the African Union is still around, but what exactly has it been doing? Some African experts say the African Union, AU, has become more of a symbol than a solution. Instead of standing strong for all Africans, it often seems like it's working to protect the interests of the powerful few. When it comes to ensuring peace, prosperity, and security, the AU has repeatedly fallen short. Take a look at what's happening in the Sahel region, Sudan, and Ethiopia's Tigray, places where conflicts rage on, yet the AU remains silent or sluggish. Across the continent, nearly 20 African nations are dealing with armed conflicts, but the AU often appears to be sitting on the sidelines. So what does the AU actually do? Well, if you ask many Africans, it seems like they mostly hold endless meetings that lead nowhere. And here's where things get even trickier. The AU isn't financially independent. In fact, it leans heavily on funding from Western countries, the very powers it was supposed to protect Africa from. Over 75% of its budget comes from outside sources, especially the European Union and countries like France. See the problem? It's like trying to break free from someone while still asking them for lunch money. If the AU relies on the West to pay its bills, how can it make decisions that truly serve African interests? Because let's be real, if Africa became fully independent and self-sufficient, Western nations would lose access to the cheap resources they've benefited from for decades. This outside influence explains why the AU often feels stuck, unable to make bold moves that put Africa first. It's hard to fight for full African liberation when the people funding your organisation might not want that to happen. But here's another head-scratcher. Why is it easier for an American to travel across Africa than for an African? For years, African leaders have talked about free movement across the continent, but in reality, borders remain tightly closed to fellow Africans. Many African countries seem more welcoming to Europeans and other foreigners than to their own neighbours. Thankfully, countries like Kenya and Rwanda are starting to open up and lead by example. But there's still a long road ahead. If Africa is ever going to unite, its leaders need to set aside their egos, stop clinging to power and wealth, and work together. Only then can the dream of a united Africa become something real. And if there's anyone who embodies the kind of leadership needed for that vision, it just might be President Traore of Burkina Faso. Look at what President Ibrahim Traore has managed to pull off in Burkina Faso in under 3 years. It's pretty impressive. When you stack his achievements against a country like Nigeria, which has more resources and faces less insecurity, Traore's progress stands out even more. So why do some people think Traore deserves to lead an entire continent? Well, for starters, he's fiercely anti-colonial, a rare trait among modern African leaders. While many leaders love to talk big about ending neo-colonialism, few actually do anything about it. But Traore, he's all about action, not just speeches. Right from the jump, Traore made it clear he wasn't going to play by the old rules. He openly criticised Western imperialism and then backed his words with real moves. For decades, France had a tight grip on Burkina Faso and the larger Sahel region. Traore ended that. He kicked out French troops and cut ties with the West, choosing instead to partner with non-Western nations. Of course, Western media didn't take too kindly to that. They painted him as a dictator, claiming he silences free speech. But despite the negative press, Traore stayed focused on his mission. Another reason people see him as a strong candidate for African leadership. He's deeply patriotic and has big dreams for his country. Unlike some African leaders who seem comfortable with poverty and corruption, as long as they hold on to their wealth and power, Traore actually wants change, and he's working for it. He's not in it for personal gain. He's in it for his people. One of his major goals is to industrialize Burkina Faso. And he's not just talking about it, he's doing it. One of his standout projects is an $8.1 million tomato processing plant in Bobo Dioulasso. This isn't just about making tomato paste, it's about boosting food security, creating jobs, and making Burkina Faso more self-reliant. Built in just 462 days, With a budget of 7.5 billion CFA francs, the tomato plant is only the beginning. During its opening, Traore revealed plans for more factories in the eastern and central regions of the country. But it's not just about tomatoes. Through APEC, an organisation Traore launched in February 2023, he's using local resources to fuel national development. Since its inception, APEC has been on a mission to create jobs and boost local industries. Traore's vision isn't just limited to food production either. He's also invested in homegrown industries that promote cultural pride and economic independence. One of his initiatives includes a textile production centre designed to supply uniforms for citizens. Another move toward self-reliance. Every project he pushes forward ties back to his larger goal: making Burkina Faso strong, independent, and self-sustaining. President Ibrahim Traore isn't just talking about change, he's making it happen. In one of his recent speeches, he unveiled a game-changing plan that's turning heads across Burkina Faso. One of his boldest moves? He completely stopped importing police and military uniforms from the West. Instead, he's making sure they're produced right at home using locally made fabrics. Sounds simple, right? But it's actually a huge deal. This isn't just about fabric, it's about pride, independence, and taking control of the country's future. Traore is following in the footsteps of one of Burkina Faso's greatest visionaries, Thomas Sankara. If you don't know Sankara, he was a revolutionary leader who believed in self-reliance and cutting ties with foreign control. Back in 1984, during a speech at the United Nations, he famously said, "We must succeed in producing more, because he who feeds you also imposes his will. We are free. He who does not feed you can demand nothing of you." It was a powerful message about independence, both politically and economically. Sankara walked the talk. He rejected loans from global financial powers like the IMF and focused on building local industries, especially food and textiles. In fact, during that famous UN speech, he proudly wore traditional Burkinabe fabric, a bold statement of national pride. Sadly, Sankara's vision was cut short when he was assassinated just a few years later. But before his death, he made a powerful prediction. 1,000 Sankaras will be born. And many believe Traore is one of them, carrying that legacy forward. By insisting that schools, the police, and the military use locally produced uniforms, Traore isn't just honouring Sankara's dream, he's making it real. And this isn't just about wearing traditional clothes, it's about boosting the local economy, creating jobs, and breathing life back into Burkina Faso's struggling textile industry. To make this happen, Traore opened a brand new textile production centre dedicated to producing these uniforms. But this isn't just another factory. It's a symbol of self-reliance, economic empowerment, and national pride. It's expected to create jobs, train local workers, and spark even more growth in the textile sector. And here's the thing, Traore didn't take decades to do this. It all happened in a surprisingly short time. Now imagine if more African countries followed this path. What kind of impact could that have on the entire continent? Would we finally see real, lasting growth? If you found this video interesting, be sure to give us a like.